Good morning. Our lesson today comes from the Gospel of John. At the Last Supper, when Judas had gone, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him." If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little while longer. You will look for me, and as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Here ends the reading. It's graduation time, and a beloved teacher has been selected as the commencement speaker. She's worked with each member of the class of 25 one time or another, and she knows them well. She knows the achievers, and she knows what motivates them to succeed. She also knows the non-achievers, and what stands between them and success. Over the years, the teacher has used every strategy she knows to help this group of eager and some not so eager learners become the best that they can be. And now the hour has come. The beloved teacher assures her students that her work with them is finished. It's up to them now, up to them to take responsibility for themselves, but to remember that help is always available. As for the teacher, it's time for her to move on. Time to sum up the lessons she's taught, perhaps share her special wishes and prayers for the class. It's a bittersweet moment for the teacher, and although she knows that she's done her best, she knows that many of these young men and women will continue to struggle, and even the achievers will face their own challenges along the way. She realizes that this is not the end of their education, although it is the end of their time together. It's only the beginning. Their diploma, if it's worth anything at all, is a license to learn. And the best that the teacher can hope for is that her students will remember the important lessons that didn't show up on the college entrance exam. Lessons like character is more important than luck. The preparation and perspiration pave the way to inspiration. And it's a wise person who knows when and how to ask for help, and then remembers to say thank you. The teacher knows that 10 years from now, nobody's going to remember a word she says tonight. But if she's truly done her job, they will remember her. They'll carry part of her with them for the rest of their lives. So even if it's painful to say goodbye to the students she's come to love, there's great joy in knowing that, in a very real sense, she will stay with them and they with her. Back when I was teaching the 20th century, I used to dread taking a sick day or go to a meeting, because that meant that I had to be out of the classroom. If I had to go to a meeting, or if I was sick, that meant that somebody else was going to have to come in and take my class over. work with my students. So I made lists and I fretted and I prayed. I prayed for a good substitute, one who wouldn't mistreat my students. And then I prayed that my students wouldn't mistreat the substitute. If you've ever had to leave a classroom full of kids, or if you've ever had to leave your family in somebody else's care, I think you know what I mean. You rack your brain trying to anticipate what they'll need and what awful things they're capable of doing. So you make lists and you pray, and finally, well, you leave. But even when they're out of sight, they're on your mind and they're in your heart. Now, according to tradition, our lesson from the Gospel of John is part of what's been called the prayer of the great high priest. But let's stay with our original theme here for just a minute. It's graduation time in Jerusalem, and the beloved teacher is the commencement speaker. The class of '03 isn't very large. There were 12, but one member has excused himself before Jesus can begin his speech. The people who saw Judas leave said he looked like he wasn't feeling very well. What a strange evening this has been. Jesus has gathered the 12 for what they thought was going to be a traditional Passover meal. But before they could get to the first course, things turned a little weird. Of course, the disciples by now were accustomed to the way Jesus had of making the ordinary seem extraordinary. But even they had a little trouble with that foot washing business. And of course, it would take a while to digest all of that stuff about bread and wine. Still, they went along because they've learned that when Jesus is present, things have a way of working out. And even if they don't quite get it now, they trust him. They know that these strange sayings will make more sense tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. It's been a long evening. The meal was good. One or two may have had more wine than they should have. And Jesus has been talking for a long time now. Few of the disciples, worn out from trying to keep up with the events in the city, and yes, worn out from trying to keep up with the pace that Jesus has set, are nodding off as the Master speaks. The room is warm. Their bellies are full. But at least John has stayed awake, and now he hears his Master's voice shift somehow. It takes on a solemn tone. His posture becomes more formal. Jesus is in prayer. His prayer is the prayer of an obedient son who has completed the list of tasks given to him by his Father. Now, on graduation night, the beloved teacher announces that his work, too, is finished. The students, he prays, are ready to take over the work, but they will continue to need help. As for the teacher, it's time for him to move on. But before he does, there's one thing he needs to ask, not for himself, but for his students and for those who will follow them. Jesus knows well that his own reward is assured, just as he knows that the pathway to that reward is paved with hot coals and broken glass. But his concern is not for himself. It's for those whom God has given him. This is the prayer of a shepherd for his sheep. This is the prayer of a teacher who has to leave his students. This is the prayer of a mother who must leave her children in someone else's care. Now, at the end of his teaching ministry, Jesus offers up this prayer, knowing that the lessons he has taught lie resting in the minds and in the hearts of his disciples like so many seeds. And his prayer is that his Father's light may warm those hearts, that they may prove to be fertile ground from which the seeds may grow and spread across the earth. It's the same message they've heard before in all the sermons and in all the miracles. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. And it is this commandment that forms the foundation of our lives as Christians. It is this commandment that Jesus prays we will keep. We were given to him through the love of God. Jesus was given to us through that same love. It is what makes us who we are. We can wear beautiful jeweled crosses on gold chains around our necks. But if we forget to love one another, if we have forgotten what those crosses represent. We can paste clever slogans on the bumpers of our pickup trucks with stylized fish and glowing rainbows and clever slogans like honk if you love Jesus. But if we neglect to feed our hungry neighbor, we can blow our horns all the way to the next town and we'll only be making noise. We need to remember that when we say the Episcopal Church welcomes you, we're talking about living that final commandment. Otherwise, we're left with nothing but an empty slogan on a pretty sign on the side of the road. Amen.